I'm Fiona Bruce, and my green and happy space is my garden. I'm not a knowledgeable gardener by any stretch of the imagination, but I love it and I'm learning. I had this planted out by a friend called Sheila Jack about 3 years ago, and I'm learning about how to put plants together, what works at different times, what works with different soil types, what works in here. And at the moment, you can see behind me, this is a bit of wildflower. It's been an interesting journey with the wildflower because I had a lot of grass. So industrial quantities of yellow rattler now in there to try and control the grass. But you can just see, I think these purple flowers are called comasias, forgive me if I got that wrong. And then the pink campion is beginning to come out, the daffodils have just gone over. We've got quite a bit of this in different parts of the garden, and I love that, I love the wildness of it. The thing about being in the garden for me is it is an utter contrast to my working life. You know, I think about politics a lot, a lot of the time, and news, and sometimes the news can be, as we all know, incredibly depressing. And to come here and not think about any of that, but just look at what's working, what isn't. I do a lot of weeding, and just enjoying the calm of it is really precious. I think it's really restorative being in the garden. You know, if I've got a weekend where I know the weather's going to be decent, and i.e. not tipping down, and I know I've got a day to spend in the garden, I actively look forward to that. I look forward during the week to thinking, on Sunday, I'm going to be in the garden, that's all I'm going to do. I love that. And you know, sometimes I'll make a bit of a mess of things, or I'll dig something up I shouldn't have, or cut something back at the wrong time. But hopefully I'm doing a bit less of that these days. You know, people talk about mindfulness, and I never feel the need for that, because when I'm in my garden, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm very much in the moment, and also I suppose planning for the future, how things are going to work. So, I mean, it's very easy to sound kind of slightly cold psychology about these things, but it's very sort of grounding, I suppose. You know, you're there with the ground. People are doing their gardens since time immemorial, so I'm just following the footsteps of all those who came before me. I mean, I don't particularly get stressed with my job. There are times when it can feel all-consuming, and the need to keep across everything politically in terms of current affairs and news. I really like that, so that's not stress as such, but you know, you can't kind of sit back there, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off on holiday and just not know what's going on. I mean, that never happens. So that's a constant drumbeat in my life. And also I travel a lot with my job. So, you know, where am I going to be this week? Probably in 3 different locations, different parts of the country. Have I got my travel logistics sorted out? So there's all that going on in my mind. And to come here and just think about what's literally in front of me is really de-stressing. It's really calming, yeah. My favourite thing to do in the garden, well, it's not a lot of digging because I'm frightened of worms, so that's slightly mortifying, now I've confessed it. So if it's been really wet, I don't do a lot of digging. I do a lot of pruning, I do a hell of a lot of weeding, and then, you know, when the time is right, moving things around or subdividing, because, you know, various plants become dominant and you've got to cut them back. But by and large, I'm trying to stay with the same plants, the same limited palette of plants that I have when we designed this garden. I don't like itty-bitty things with lots of different things, different colours. There's a palette here. It's blue, white, purple, yellow, green, and that's it, and that's how it's going to stay. All that you can see here is relatively new. So we put this all in 3 years ago. These beds did not exist. So we created these beds. So we've got Euphorbia wolfenii, which there's lots of different types of Euphorbia, obviously, but wolfenii I particularly like, big yellow-green globes. The irises, which are a pale blue, yet to come out. 2 different types of geranium. This, I don't think it's Johnson's blue, but it really looks like it. And then the one next to it has these delicate pale purple flowers that are absolutely beautiful. I can't remember the name of them. A bit of catmint or nepeta, if you want to be fancy. Some grasses. There's a little one there. They seed, and you get little bits of them, and then I pluck them out and plant them somewhere else to kind of spread them around. My alliums are just beginning to come up. Planted a lot of alliums this year. And then I've got another thing, I can't remember a name. It might be something like valeriana or something like that. And it looks like cow parsley, but doesn't take over like cow parsley does. And then I've got Verbena bonariensis as well, which grows all tall and spindly. And then I've also got eryngium, so sea holly, Picos blue, which is cobalt blue. The stalks the flowers, the leaves, everything. It's absolutely stunning. But the idea is to have long frondy things that wave in the wind and smaller clumpy things, I'm sure this is not the right vocabulary, at the bottom, and somehow bring it together into a lovely cohesive whole. Oh, well, I've got wisteria, which you can't see, it's behind you, and the scent of that is just fabulous. These particularly don't smell, I would say. I've got rosemary in other places, and lavender, obviously that's gorgeous when you brush past it, that's lovely. But actually this doesn't smell so much, but just makes me happy just to look at it. I would say my favourite flower, quite possibly the Picos blue sea holly, because you don't see it that often, or I don't see it that often anyway. It doesn't last that long, but it is like a shot of this most intense blue, kind of otherworldly blue, in amongst this bed. And because I don't see it that often, I kind of feel special that it's there. My happiest memories in the garden are when my family are here and we're all just hanging out or playing badminton very badly with sort of rubbish net that dips in the middle, or having a barbecue, sitting out, eating. Garden table is under wisteria, so just sitting out there. Or in the evenings, our garden table faces west. And so sometimes sit there with my husband and a cocktail and watch the sun go down, and that's very nice. I think I'm very much a doer kind of person than a sit-arounder kind of person. So, and I like to be busy. It's disappointing to me if there's nothing for me to do in the garden. I mean, that's never going to be the case, but if I think, oh, it's all looking pretty good, I don't really need to do very much, it's a bit of a shame. And then I'll get stuck in and probably make a mess of it. It just occupies me physically, occupies me mentally, and that has to be the best thing. See lots of wildlife in the garden. So wake up in the morning, there's always rabbits. We get muntjac deer, which are the corgi of the deer family, little legs. See them a lot. Under our bedroom window, where the wisteria and a beautiful climbing rose called Wedding Day grows, this wood pigeon for several years in a row would make its nest. And I'd open my curtains in the morning and this little baleful eye would look up at me and think, don't come any closer. So that was it. The pigeon didn't come last year, I'm not sure why. And you could hear that very distinctive sound that wood pigeons make. Gorgeous, did wake us up a bit, so that was less gorgeous. But yeah, that's kind of mostly what we see. We have a dog, so that keeps a fair bit of wildlife away actually. But the rabbits predominantly. The reason I think Horatio's Garden is such a wonderful charity is not only because surely it's obvious how restorative and healing gardens can be, green spaces can be, but I remember when my mother was in hospital in Exeter and it was very sunny, she was in there having long-term treatment and she was desperate to get outside and I was desperate to get her outside, find her right old palaver, get the wheelchair, get everything, the drip and everything. Got her outside and all they had then, and this is quite a long time ago, was just this sort of empty concrete space in the middle of a courtyard with weeds growing up through the cracks and a few picnic tables. And I just thought, how depressing. And I totally understand why they hadn't been able to do more with it than that. They rushed off their feet saving people's lives. And so the idea that you can come out of a hospital ward, which is noisy, usually overheated for good reason, the air can feel very stale. It's sometimes really hard to feel well inside a hospital, really hard. And the idea that you can come outside and feel like a human being again, and not just a patient, I think is really important, really important. And that's why I think, to have Horatio's Garden doing that is just brilliant, really brilliant.